Picture this. You're sitting in a dark theater. The lights dim, the screen flickers on, and what you see isn't polished Hollywood spectacle. It's grainy, shaky, handheld footage of people who look like your neighbors. Terrified. That's the strange magic of found footage horror. For decades, audiences have been more scared by camcorders, webcams, and shaky phone footage than by million-dollar monster effects. And today, we're diving into why. We're going to trace the story of found footage horror, from its controversial beginnings in the 1980s to its breakout success with the Blair Witch Project, its domination of the 2000s with Paranormal Activity, and how it keeps reinventing itself in the digital age with films like Unfriended, Host, and Skinamarink. So grab your flashlight, don't wander off into the woods, and let's talk about why we just can't stop watching the camera shake. Before we talk Blair Witch or Paranormal Activity, we've got to go back to the late 1970s and early 80s, when a little Italian film shocked audiences and basically invented found footage. I'm talking about Cannibal Holocaust. Released in 1980, it's infamous for a lot of reasons. Animal cruelty on set, extreme gore, and most importantly, it blurred the line between fiction and reality so much that its director, Ruggero Deodato, was put on trial for murder. Yes, seriously. Authorities thought the cast had actually been killed because the film looked that real. The actors even had contracts that prevented them from appearing in public for a year, just to sell the illusion. It was the first horror film to use the discovered footage framing, pretending this was real film stock, recovered after an expedition gone wrong. And whether you love or hate Cannibal Holocaust, it set the blueprint. Shaky camera, ordinary people, horrific realism. Of course, the film was banned in multiple countries, and it's still controversial today. But in terms of horror history, it planted the seed. Horror doesn't have to look like a movie. It can look like evidence. If Cannibal Holocaust was the spark, then the Blair Witch Project was the wildfire. Released in 1999, this tiny indie film exploded into one of the most profitable movies in history. It cost about $60,000 to make and made nearly $250 million worldwide. But what made it work wasn't just the movie, it was the marketing. The filmmakers went all in on making people believe this footage was real. They built a fake website with police reports, missing persons flyers, and backstory about the Blair Witch legend. Audiences didn't just buy tickets to a horror film. They thought they were watching the final moments of actual missing students. And back then, in the late 90s, before social media fact-checking, that illusion was even more powerful. And let's talk about the style for a second. The shaky cam in the woods, the arguments, the mundane stuff, like characters just bickering about maps. That's the genius of it. Because unlike a polished Hollywood horror film, Blair Witch felt like it could have been recorded by anyone. And that grounded realism made every rustle of leaves, every twig snapping, absolutely terrifying. And of course, who could forget that ending shot? Heather's tearful confession into the camera, then Mike standing in the corner, silent, before the footage cuts to black. The Blair Witch Project didn't just scare people, it proved that horror could thrive without special effects, without stars, and without a big budget. It made every camcorder, every backyard, every dark forest feel like the set of a potential horror story. By the mid-2000s, found footage was in a weird place. After Blair Witch, tons of knockoffs tried to copy the formula, but most of them flopped. It felt like the gimmick had burned out. Then in 2007, Along came Paranormal Activity, and it changed everything. Made for just $15,000 in the director's own house, the film looked like nothing, literally. Just a couple setting up a camera in their bedroom. But it turned out to be one of the most effective horror films of all time. The genius of Paranormal Activity wasn't about showing the monster. It was about showing almost nothing. Just subtle movements, a door creaking, footsteps, a shadow passing by. Because the footage is so ordinary, just home security cam vibes, it feels like something you could have recorded yourself. And that realism is exactly what made audiences lose sleep. Plus, the use of night vision, absolute stroke of genius. Watching two people sleep while something unseen creeps around them taps directly into that primal fear. You're most vulnerable when you're asleep. Cole and Hollywood didn't even want to release it at first. The film only got big after audiences at test screenings literally begged for it. Paramount even ran a campaign called Demand It, where fans could vote to have the movie screened in their city. The hype worked. The $15,000 home movie went on to make almost $200 million worldwide. Paranormal Activity kicked off a new wave of found footage. Suddenly, every studio wanted their own low-budget camcorder horror hit. And while not all of them stuck, the formula was clear. Keep it cheap, keep it real, and let the audience scare themselves with what they don't see. So, we've talked about the classics: Cannibal Holocaust, Blair Witch, Paranormal Activity. But what does found footage horror look like in the digital age? Enter films like Unfriended, 2014, Host, 2020, and the experimental Skinamarink, 2022. Suddenly, it wasn't just camcorders or night vision anymore. It was webcams, Zoom calls, and even abstract, unsettling visuals that blur reality and dream. Unfriended took the idea of found footage and placed it entirely on a computer screen. You're watching characters scroll through social media, FaceTime, and private messages, all while a vengeful spirit is stalking them online. It's terrifying because it's relatable. Most of us live a huge chunk of our lives online now. Then came Host, filmed entirely over Zoom during the pandemic. 6 friends conduct a seance online, and chaos unfolds. It's minimalistic, but every glitch, every frozen frame, every jump scare in a webcam box feels personal. Finally, there's Skinamarink, which blends grainy handheld aesthetics with surreal, liminal imagery, empty hallways, drifting toys, warped childhood memories. Found footage isn't just about pretending something is real. It's about creating psychological unease. The common thread: realism, relatability, and adapting to the technology we interact with every day. From camcorders to webcams and Zoom, found footage continues to scare us because it feels like it's happening right here, right now. So, what have we learned on this journey through found footage horror? It all started with Cannibal Holocaust, shocking audiences with raw, realistic violence. Then the Blair Witch Project proved that clever marketing and the illusion of reality could turn a tiny indie into a global phenomenon. Paranormal Activity showed us that you don't need monsters, just a bedroom, a camera, and the suggestion of something unseen. And today, modern experiments like Unfriended, Host, and Skinamarink prove that found footage can evolve with the technology around us. Webcams, Zoom calls, and digital glitches make horror feel personal, relatable, and impossibly close to home. Ultimately, the genius of found footage horror lies in its simplicity. It's not about CGI or expensive sets. It's about making us believe what we're seeing is real. And that belief, that tiny sliver of doubt, is what keeps us glued to the screen, heart pounding, waiting for the next jump, the next creak, the next flicker of movement in the corner of the frame. So next time you pick up your phone, open your laptop, or watch a shaky home video, remember, horror doesn't need to be polished to scare you. Sometimes the raw, the real, and the personal is enough to make your blood run cold.